But just as I confessed to you that I have a huge carbon footprint, I'm not a total villain because, in fact, as an architect and starting since 1981, when I was recruited by I.M. Pei, the architect, to work on a project in China, I've been very familiar with China, and my most frequently asked question is, you must have a lot of work in China. You have such a long history there. And in fact, we have not done one thing in China until recently. And for a very reason that we felt very uncomfortable that the climate is not right for us to actually implement something concrete until now. And I think we're very hopeful that, especially from what you hear today, that many measures are afoot. Although, I must say, though, I'm still very confused, in a way, about leadership. Because when you have overlapping responsibilities and accountabilities, and yes, education can bring forth a better understanding, so therefore managing the issue, there's more self-management, a better distribution of disciplinary control. I still, even though, Peter, you've mentioned that there's certain government mandate, and that there are resources being applied. Can any one of you shed light on what you might recommend in terms of a process by which perhaps private, public, and any other sectors could weigh in a method that could bring this about?
China is in a phase that almost every industrialized country has gone through, where it starts out where it's the wild, wild west or some version thereof. The Rockefellers and others that are now our founders were robber barons and created huge environmental disasters, all these sorts of things. The question, I think, is why is it that the human society can't learn from the problems that have been created in other societies and accelerate the movement from the wild, wild west to a more structured form? I think China is moving in that direction, and moving much rapidly than any society we've ever seen before. And I think there's a tremendous amount of leadership being exerted from within the country. My sense is that if it's not coming from within the country, it's going to be very ineffective. And so our job is to support what's going on there as opposed to try to substitute for what's going on there.
Dan?
I couldn't agree more. I think one of the interesting challenges, if you look at it from a governmental point of view, is that I think we are seeing at the central government level a substantial amount of increased attention to this, with the elevation of the ministry, with the pledge to move MEP from 200 staff nationwide to maybe 400 staff, which is still enormously small, with US EPA having 18,000 staff. But having said that, the one challenge here, and it's not one that's been totally addressed even in the United States, is how does that then play out at the local level? Because I've been participating in a set of sessions that SEPA has called every year on regional air quality management, bringing in all of the local environmental protection bureaus, trying to get them to implement these goals of reduced sulfur dioxide and other things. But the local EPBs have, unlike in the US, where they really have to live up to a standard, the state agencies that EPA sets, there is no comparable control. And in fact, what you see is, because much of the decision-making is at the local level by the economic development authorities, I don't think you see that, you definitely don't see implementation at the local level that needs to be there. It happens in the US as well. I mean, there are states that do a really good job on environment and states that don't. But figuring out that how to make that, what we would call the federalist structure, work is going to be a significant challenge. The place where we've always failed on that is in the land use area, because we've kept land use as a very, very local decision-making, and that meant you can't even do a regional decision-making in most metropolitan areas of the United States. And so, in China, that's the kind of conurbation problem you faced. But that, figuring out how to build that structure, I think, is going to be important.
One thing I'm curious about, oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'd also like to follow the two speakers to talk about the leadership and the governance system. Actually, a lot to talk. This is another my research topic. By conclusion, I would say we're thinking about two major solutions to solve the governance problem. One is federalism. So that's we're learning from US. Actually, I'm going to organize federalism. Yeah, I'm going to organize a workshop on environmental governance to do a comparison between US and China, specifically target on the federalism system. So actually, China, CIPA, even 2 years ago, has already established 11 regional offices, but still not enough compared with US. See, 10,000 staff are at the local level from US EP, but for China, still not enough. That's the one solution. Another one actually is even more fundamentally back to the market mechanism, pricing, taxation pricing. Think about why we have the, energy-intensive industry in China, why we have the pollutions. So fundamentally, if we put the right price, if we internalize all of the environmental cost by the taxation, that would, correct the market distortion. So the decision makers of the companies, of the consumers, of local provinces, they have to make the market signal to decide whether or not you have such a kind of polluting industry. So but China now is actually the pricing approach started 2 years ago. But the problem is now China currently is facing high inflation and financial problems. You cannot immediately shift to the pricing approach. Now still slowly changing, that's the direction.
Well, you just answered my question. I realize I have only 1 minute. One burning question for me is that, it's interesting, of course, this Faustian deal, of industrialization, and we all are guilty of it because we go to Kmart or wherever it is, go, well, that's cheap, let's buy 10, buy 20, and we don't really think about that, and then at the same time we'll go environment, and the thing is, it's economics because we didn't set the price, we didn't need 10 of them, so the issue, of repeating, the plus ça change thing, the history of Victorian England, and then America, and then China, and then probably India, Africa. I mean, do we have to really go through the entire world, learning the same thing over and over again? And can we afford to do that? I guess, we want to close with that for everyone to think about, what do we have to do to make this happen? So thank you very much. It's very protracted, but I hope you get something out of this. Thank you very much.